Okay, so I'm sitting here with Nick Leggatt from the Road Transport Forum, the CEO of that, and the distribution network has really been thrust into the front of people's thoughts at the moment. So I wanted to bring Nick in and just kind of get some insights into what's going on for the trucking and delivery space. So, Nick, my first question for you would be: can you give us a bit of context about what the Road Transport Forum is?
Yes, certainly. I mean, we're the industry peak body for the road freight transport industry, so trucking operators. Mm-hmm. And there are around about 30,000 heavy trucks on the road in New Zealand, or trucks over about 6.5 tonnes. And we represent a big chunk of the people who operate those trucks for hire and reward. So it's kind of, I mean, people see trucks on the road, they think they're all doing the same thing, and very often they are, but they certainly carry the economy on their back. But we represent those people who actually are transporting freight and for others, rather than using the trucks within their own businesses, although we do represent some of those people too.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot going on at the moment. What kind of issues are you guys facing at the moment?
Well, I think that a lot of our issues would relate pretty closely to those of the general business community in New Zealand. A lack of activity, cash flow is becoming harder, and the operating environment is restricted because we're in a level 4 lockdown. Of course, road freight does have a lot of advantages in that you need our industry to transport vital and essential goods like food, and we've got that saying that supermarket shelves would be empty within 3 days if there were no trucks on the road. And now is nearer a truer word is said than at the moment, because we recognise how important that is. As a basic lifeline for people who are stuck in their homes and needing to eat, obviously, and feed their families. So the trucking industry has had challenges as part of the supply chain, because the government have put a classification on freight, one that says only essential freight can move, and then they've defined what essential freight is. And so we've spent the last 3 weeks saying, actually, if you want to avoid problems in the supply chain from building up, things like container shortages and storage space, then you actually should just let all freight move. And of course, the government have gone back to their principle, which is an important one. That is, we've taken this really severe lockdown decision and we want to make it work. And it's about smothering the virus by keeping as many people at home and away from each other and as possible. So this is a balance, and I think that every day I think we're seeing improvements in New Zealand's COVID situation, and our advocacy on behalf of our members is we really need to keep this industry moving, because if New Zealand is going to recover its economy as quickly as it possibly can, the movement of freight is essential in that. And so our challenge has been, a lot of members have been operating some of their fleet, but actually that's not necessarily profitable. I mean, I know that's 100% more than a lot of businesses are doing at this time, but actually we need a viable transport fleet to be able to help the economy be productive again.
Yeah, and that sort of partners nicely with some conversations I'm having with small business owners, particularly really, really small ones where they're working on their own and they've got an online site and they're making things, and they're not actually posing a huge risk, but everything has to stop. If we can get these people moving and being productive and selling, keeping the money moving, keeping, and that go partners with what you're talking about with keeping distribution happening, and then that it also helps with the confidence on the other side. We're all feeling like it's not as bad.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So those things.
You're absolutely right, and I think it's sort of different sides of the same coin, really. Where we need New Zealand to have that confidence, as you say, as soon as possible. We need people to be productive, because I think we're in this sort of it's a period of still. The government have put together some good economic packages that will see us through for a little way, but actually those of us that are sort of peering around the corner are saying, we need to get back to work as soon as. And, you know, it is, I know it's a tough thing for some people to hear, but, you know, this sort of completely sort of this position that, well, you know, how can you say that this is all about health? Actually, the economy is about health as well. It's about people's health and well-being and their ability to generate a livelihood, not just for themselves in business, but in terms of people they employ. So, you know, that's striking that balance. You know, it's not something that I don't envy the government on that, because there's going to reach a point, and you know, maybe as soon as next week, where they're going to have to start dropping the restrictions a bit, and then wait to see what the consequences and from a public health perspective are for that.
As well as the other consequences that you touched on about the employment and stuff. Yeah, I think when those restrictions kind of the alert levels move down, that's when we're going to really start to find out how shape we're in.
That's right.
So I noticed that you presented to the COVID-19 committee. What were some of the key messages that you were working with there?
Well, really, it was trying to put the position of our industry at this time, to say, look, there are a lot of people doing essential work, and as I mentioned, they're not all making money just because they're operating, and you know, trucking businesses tend to actually just drop everything and respond to need, and I think as an industry, I think Kiwis have worked out that that's kind of what they've done, because they've seen trucks on the road delivering essential things, and it's been great to sort of see that recognition, because it's often a maligned industry, and I think we've really been able to demonstrate our worth at this time. But in terms of the committee, really that dropping that classification on freight, the supply chain, you know, is an interdependent web of sort of give and take, and we've said really clearly you can't sort of stick your finger in one part of it to stop it without there being consequences all through it. And I think you know, there have been consequences, there have been issues, but look, hopefully we'll see that drop of, you know, when we move to level 3, which I hope, you know, will be towards the end of next week. But talking about business support as well, how businesses can be supported through this time, what the road transport industry needs from the government, and you know, in terms of support, things like, you know, its regulation and easing off on things like needing to get a warrant of fitness or certificate of fitness, as we say, for a truck. The government have been, you know, NZTA have been really good on that sort of stuff, and just, I suppose the key message for the committee was an educative one around, this is what road freight does. You know, 93% of freight in New Zealand travels on the back of a truck, and you know, everything, you know, in our house or in our office, you know, generally gets there on the back of a truck at some point. And you know, we are fighting, and I don't want to sort of politicise it. I mean, I'm obviously in a political job, but, you know, we are fighting a bit of a battle. You know, the government, this government, are not as keen on trucks. You know, like, I mean, the Prime Minister hasn't talked about the essential trucking workforce in any of her speeches, although Ashley Bloomfield has, which has been great. And so we do want to sort of emphasise the importance of the trucking network, and you know, the people, the drivers who do the work every day, and you know, get things from A to B, and in a very competitive industry.
Yeah, and I was reading, you know, while they're doing this during the lockdown, a lot of the facilities that they relied on are actually closed as well. You know, some of the
yes,
you know,
we did have the great public toilet.
Yeah, I don't want to say
please,
it,
but open the public toilets. Yeah, I mean, you think about somebody who's driving, and actually particularly women who don't have the same agility as men where it comes to that sort of thing. You know, women and men driving what we call line haul, you know, say from Auckland to Wellington or Picton to Christchurch. You think, you take it for granted you can stop and go to the bathroom and get something to eat. And actually what we were finding in that first week is that there were no public toilets open. Service station toilets weren't open. Service stations weren't open for food. So, yeah, look, I think where it comes to food, you kind of expect people should be able to plan ahead a bit. But we were very lucky that that the government and arms of the government really sort of understood that, and local government really responded well to actually, let's get some public toilets open on key freight routes. So that certainly eased and gave drivers a bit of a relief. It's a bad joke, I know.
Hey, we're going to do what we can to make it fun at this time, don't we?
Yeah.
And the last question I had for you, what opportunities do you see coming out of this?
Well, I think the opportunities are to take this as a change opportunity in organisations and businesses. So how can we do things better? I mean, you and I are having this discussion now via Zoom. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you might have been a further ahead thinker than I was, but I wouldn't have thought about you doing an interview with me and recording it. You know, a month ago. You probably had thought about that, but you know, we don't have to be face to face with people in the same room to necessarily have the same kind of engagement. You know, to have a similar engagement, so that has value. So I think that's one change. I think you know, in terms of business, the ability for businesses to optimize what they do. I think, you know, over time's coming ahead, and to go back to the C word that you mentioned at the start, confidence. We're going to need confidence, and I think it's going to involve people looking inwardly at the way they do things currently. Can they do things more effectively and efficiently? And then looking out to their customers to see who's up for that and how they can partner. I mean, and you know, I think road freight is a good example of where that might be able to happen a bit. And you know, just think about new ways to do things. I mean, I think we've all learned a lot during this time, and about humans and about our own behaviour and what it's like being trapped at home with your kids and still having to work, which has actually been it's been a good thing. I think you've got to make that choice often, don't you, to say, actually, I'm going to embrace this, and I think that's what we're going to have to do with the times ahead, because it is going to be tough. If you look at the sort of unemployment figures that are being forecast, if you think about where the world is going to be, and it's okay now, where, as I say, we're just in that still part before the storm, but it's going to get hectic, and we've got to be able to adapt quickly.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree. Well, to summarise, I do want to acknowledge what a fabulous job that the distribution network are doing to keep things going.
They are.
It's epic, and also managing, you know, there's probably on a smaller scale, truck size, but even something as simple as the grocery deliveries and the way that they had to mobilise that network really quickly to meet that need that they just probably couldn't have planned for 3 months earlier. And and that goes for a lot of different things in New Zealand. We just did it, you know. And it's amazing. And
it's and you know, that kind of nimbleness, and the fact we're a small country, and people, I think, have got a sort of a can do, and it's easier to reach out and engage with people. I mean, I think we've got to use those advantages in the time ahead, because we're still going to be, I mean, it might be a less global economy for a while, but actually, like in New Zealand sense, you know, like we provide food for the rest of the world. We're still going to be connected, and the world needs to eat, thankfully. So our connections to other countries are still going to be there, and we've got to remember that before we sort of turn too inwardly, I think.
That's cool. Well, I really appreciate you making time to chat with me. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for the initiative as well. I think it's great to air these issues.
Thank you.
So well done. Yeah.
It's been really a fun project. Cool. All righty. Thank you, Matt. I'll
thank you.
hit the button.